Welcome, Peak Performers. We have Dr. Matthew McNamee with us again today. And Doc, how are you today?
Doing well, Steve. Thanks. How about you?
Doing great. Thank you. And we're going to talk about the subject of longevity or health span today. And Doc, I just want to ask you the first question is, what is your view on someone's ability to influence their longevity? Like, what role do genetics play? Because, a lot of people go, oh, I have bad genes, so I'm just going to live it up and I can't worry about longevity. What do you say to that?
Well, I mean, people genetically could have, let's say, be worried about their genes because of their parents, and they could potentially change their outcome based on the way that they're living. Or people could rely on basically stating that I've got good genes, and then not incorporate a lot of really good, let's say, lifestyle, patterns and such, and could negatively impact their outcome. So, I mean, yeah, I think genetics, I would say probably at a maximum, I would say probably about maybe 25%. I mean, there's some studies that say less than 16 or less than 10%. But it's a portion, but it's a small portion really of it.
Yep. So what is that? So that means that the inverse of that, 75, 80, even 90% of why you live as long as you do or how healthy you are is from the choices you make, the environment you allow yourself to live in and work in, and the habits that you have, right? Is that what you're saying?
Correct. Yeah. I mean, some of it, even is out of our control. I mean, it just starts preconception, and then it's stuff we're exposed to throughout our entire life can impact that. Yep. But you're right. I mean, the environment that you work in, the relationships that you're in, everything from, nutrition to internal, external stressors, all of those things will impact, will impact your genes basically.
Right. Yeah. Well, we've talked, I'm open on this forum here in this group about my own, I have very poor genetics from my dad's side. I've shared openly, my dad's had, 9 heart events, actual heart attacks. And he'd already had 1 or 2 by the time he was the age I am today. And I don't have any of that showing up in my life because I've lived a lot differently. He obviously didn't have the advantage of the knowledge we have today,
right,
at 80 years old. So this is not, to make my dad feel bad. It's more of, I acted on the knowledge that I had. And so I'm built different and live differently. And so that's kind of an example of that, isn't it?
And it's being expressed very differently. Right.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Well, go ahead. What?
No, it's a perfect example. I mean, and then there's some people that will have, let's say, genetically, right? They'll have all these risk factors, but they could be living into their, 70s and 80s, not expressing any of them, right? None of them are manifesting in their lives. They're not getting the diabetes or the cardiovascular conditions and stuff that they were at, higher risk for, because they're modifying what's going on with those genes essentially. So certain lifestyle choices and such and behaviors are around that can turn them on or turn them off from actually being expressed. So
that's kind of like, I'm going a little off script here, but your approach to medicine, going down to that cellular level, as you explained in a recent speaking engagement you had, if you optimize those drivers of cellular health, that's going to help prevent those suboptimal gene markers from expressing, correct?
Yeah, generally all of those, if you satisfy pretty much all of those areas or requirements, you should be, essentially in, pretty good shape for the most part. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So you touched on behaviors a minute ago, and so what characteristics or behaviors do you see in high achievers that you've seen in your medical practice? Because you've worked with a lot of very high achieving entrepreneurs, tech execs when you were in Silicon Valley. And what were the behaviors you saw that worked against their longevity and against positive gene expression?
I guess to kind of sum it up, I feel like the majority of them prioritize work,
Yep.
make that number one. And as a byproduct, they're typically working really long hours, or their work bleeds into, the evenings, impacts the quality of their sleep. They're typically, very, typically highly stressed.
Yep.
And, it's not uncommon that what goes along with that is a little bit more of a sedentary lifestyle and just kind of grabbing, food that's convenient and on the go.
Yes.
It's just so they can keep plugging away, and it's just work, 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 work. And, their sleep suffers, typically the nutrition isn't as high quality as we would, like it to be. And then just the stress is probably one of the biggest components that just kind of catalyzes the rest of the processes.
What's crazy about it too is the stress causes you to, you're the rush. What's the word I want to use? The busyness of life. You're feeling rushed. You're feeling time pressured. That causes you to grab the convenient food, and then because you're not doing anything about the stress, that causes your sleep to get compromised. And the crazy thing that I learned from you is that that all reinforces, each one of those reinforce the other in causing someone to retain more weight, to crave sugars and carbs, which then causes you to retain more weight, and it's just like this really bad negative cycle that you get into.
Right.
And you basically described my life, 6 years ago. So, yeah. So, well, great. All right. The next question I have is, what kinds of things are, as you've had these high achievers come into your practice, over the last 10 years, what are the kinds of things that people are experiencing? Like, what are they bringing to you and saying, Doc, I'm just not right? And, maybe touch on also, like I was this case of this, I go to my primary care, Steve, I know you don't feel great, but you look okay on the lab. So maybe don't work as hard. That's what I got. How do you respond to those things? Break it up in two answers, maybe.
Sure. What I typically, I guess, what I would see with the majority of the individuals, I think, is fatigue's not, uncommon. So fatigue or crashing in certain periods of the day.
Yep.
Sometimes the focus or declines, or you get brain fog. Just the feelings of being stressed, overwhelmed, anxious, irritable, sometimes depression, not uncommon. Insomnia sometimes is one of the first things that they come in with. Listen, I'm not sleeping as well. Okay, well, what's going on? But if it's been going on, a few years, sometimes you start getting, weight gain around the belly and, changes in their, some of their other hormones and stuff that affect, their sexual health. And I would say, I guess probably the other component is gastrointestinal symptoms, things like heartburn or indigestion, or just irregularities with their gastrointestinal tract, alternating, flipping kind of back and forth. And that's typically affected as well.
Yeah. Yeah. You basically, I think I had every one of those almost, for me personally. And what's really cool about this though, is you can reverse engineer all of this. And you've done that for me. And that's why we're in this business together. And it's kind of our cause. But you can, like, I never have an afternoon energy drop. Like right now in the East, it's 3:16 p.m. I feel terrific. And I had lunch at 12:30. And because of what I'm eating, I'm not setting myself up for that crash because I slept great last night. I have the energy stores, and because I'm managing my stress, I don't feel that anxiousness anymore that comes from chronic stress, because that actually drives that anxiousness, in many ways. What about the second part of that question, Doc? Is it pretty common where they'll go into a primary care doc, they do, only what insurance will let them do? And this isn't a slam against doctors. It's more about the system they're in. And yet they don't feel good. And you usually find that there are lots of things wrong with them that don't show up in these surface level screenings.
Right. Yeah. I mean, what'll happen a lot of times with those situations, if someone goes in, right, and they say, I'm feeling off and something's not right. I know myself better than anybody and just don't feel right. And, and they may look at the labs that they're doing and write their screening labs, and they'll say, everything looks good on here. You said, right. Maybe try cutting back on the work, or, maybe tweak this or this or this. They don't have the, right, like you had said, basically the same gamut essentially of tests that we're running, and we're able to see a lot more through the tests that we're running, and look at them a little bit. I feel like a little bit more comprehensively, than a standard, just kind of like your annual, screening labs.
Right.
And we're able to see a lot more within that. And then when we look at that, we can look at, maybe we need to address this, and this, and look at all the underlying contributors to whatever's driving that process.
Right. Well, to close this now, I just would say that, I'm a product of this, and that was my situation. My labs look fine, but my doctor is one of my best friends, and he's a great doctor, and he's a great guy, and he cares deeply about his patients, but the system he's in, that's what he's allowed to do. And when I showed him the stuff you're doing, his eyes got big around, like, this is great information that he wished he could get his hands on to work with his patients. If you're running around the world with brain fog, if you're tired physically or mentally, if you're struggling with libido or sexual dysfunction, if you've got weight gain that you can't figure out how to get rid of, or it won't stay off, if you're not sleeping well, all of those things are usually connected and can be resolved. And they were resolved for me and for a lot of our patients. And so if you're interested in learning more, if you just want to learn how not to be tired in the afternoon, or if you want to learn how to do the 35-hour work week, we teach that. You can actually get more done in less time. Raise your hand, say something in the chat bar that you're interested, or just a thumbs up, and we'll follow up with you and kind of share more with you on this topic. Dr. Matt, thank you so much.
Got it, Steve. Thank you.